Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids, and today I want to give you my updated tier list on mythical champions in Raid Shadow Legends. We just had Ashnar added to the game. Spoiler alert, he's pretty bad, is my initial impressions of him. But we are going to be ranking them all. We've got S plus, S, and S minus, then A, B, and C. Because I do think at the top, actually, there's the mythicals are closer together, and there's a lot that are really good. And then we've got a few that have, I think, quite big flaws and quite big problems. I'm certainly hoping for a balance patch for Mythical soon. We'll update the tier list if that happens, maybe a bit after it, after some testing. Also, we do have a boosted Primal Shard for Heroes Path this weekend, but it's absolutely not worth doing. I would be expecting a 2x Mythicals from Primals fairly soon as well. So hopefully this will let you know what champions to look out for, what to expect, and so on. So without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, we're starting off with the Calamitous, and Calamitous starts with a C. He's going into C. Yeah, I'm not a huge Calamitous fan. I think he does good damage in Hydra in his second form, and that's fine, but I don't think he's really exceptional. And I don't think his first form is that useful. I think he definitely needs buffs. That'll be the main thing with Calamitous. I think he so obviously needs buffs that he will get some. So that's the main thing to watch out for him. C for a mythical is still a good champion overall, right? This is still better than most champs in the game, but he's very disappointing for me for a mythical. Next up, we've got Nice. I'm going to put Nice in the A tier. I am very curious about this champion. He's definitely kind of one of the weirder ones in terms of how he plays. I think he's fantastic for PvP, for Arena. I think he's actually sneaky good there. Better than we expect. I think, though, outside of that, I don't know if he really gets that much use. I think he can be maybe okay against some bosses. I've heard people say that they tried him against Hydra and he was kind of bad. I've heard people say they tried him against Hydra and he was kind of good, so I'm not sure. He does do the double damage against bosses with his single target hit. I see him mostly as like a really solid Arena champion. I'm giving him like an A, which is mostly looking at Arena. Our base is up next. I'm going to put her in S minus. And actually, you know what? This would be a good point to mention that, hang on, let me get it here. I did a video recently. Sorry, probably just jumped straight to a blindingly white spreadsheet. Apologies for that. But we did a video looking at the community ratings, right? The ratings in game for these champions. And actually, interesting enough, our base is number 2 on that list. I'm not putting her anywhere near that high, but you can check that out and see that video for my thoughts on how I would buff some of these bad mythicals to make them better. But here we go. Jumping back into our list, I'm putting our base in S minus. I think she's very good. I think she really is very good. Again, she's a great Arena champion and in Siege as well. That speed aura is very useful. Really powers up bomb champions, which is pretty cool. I'm definitely intrigued to see, like with the new sets and everything coming in. I do think that, Polymorph is maybe on a bit of a downwards trend, honestly, and that will push our base up in the game. I think she's just a good general support as well. So she's solid. I don't think she's as strong as some of the others, but she's a good, solid mythical. She's sort of like the ideal of the mythical, really. She's not like crazy OP. She's not crazy, underpowered, obviously. She's just like, wow, okay, good mythical. Both forms are good. You can flip between them. Okay, cool. Mezamel is up next. Actually, it's funny. This is not planned how it's laid out here. It's just random, I think. But yeah, Mezamel I'm going to put in the B tier. Mezamel, she comes in. She brings good single target damage in her Form 1. And she has a block revive. That's quite nice. And her Form 2 is some AoE. I think she's kind of just an okay attack-based damage dealer. She's not doing anything too special outside of the block revive. She's very squishy and all the rest. But that block revive is useful for sure. So yeah, I'll give her a B. She's decent, but not too crazy. Gallius up next, the chicken. YST's going to be mad. I'm going to put him in C tier. Yeah, I'm going to put him in C tier. This one, it's a little bit tough to judge this one. Maybe I should put him in B because of, I think he can be okay in Arena. Like his first form, he's got decent crowd control and he can counterattack for max HP damage. That maybe has a potential in the future. I could see Gallius climbing up in the future just on the basis of Form 1, right? Like against Hydra, it's decent. But, I think other provokers like Nergigante Archer, Krisk, etc. are just better. Brazoor is just better. than him, which is a knock against him. But I think if you do have more bosses in the future, like he loses value against Hydra because he can't counterattack and do enemy max HP damage when they're decapitated. But if we've got other bosses in the future, he could climb up and do better. I still put him in C. I think his alternate form is quite weak damage-wise. It will benefit for sure when Polymorph falls off a bit because it wants to put decreased defense. But I haven't been too impressed with Gallius. I'm putting him in C for now. Next up, we've got Lady Mikage. And I don't think she's the most powerful, but nonetheless, I think I will put her into S plus tier. We might revisit this. I might have a full look here at the end and, and see if I want to switch stuff around. But Lady Mikage, she is just one of the best Hydra champions in the game. Like in most of the best teams. Now, not the Trunda stuff, but outside of Trunda, she's in the best teams. She's also really solid for Arena. She's extremely good for Fire Knight. And she's just one of the most broadly useful mythicals is sort of the deal here. Yeah, and I think any PvE content added in the game, like if we get another clan boss or anything like that, you know, maybe this new event dungeon that's coming up now, she's got potential to be extremely good there. So I think Mikage is good just because of the breadth of her usefulness. You know, like her second form, it's great for crowd control. Now, I don't think it's as good as like Galathier. It's probably not even as good as Commodus, really, for crowd control, but it's still very good. But it's her first form. It's the fact that both of her forms are very strong. Her first form, yeah, she's just so strong everywhere. That's where she goes in. But I would say, like, other S plus characters are, like, more explosive, shall we say, in their best areas. But I'll leave her there for now, and we'll see where we go. Toshiro is up next. I'd be putting Toshiro high up in the S tier. Toshiro is the best Hydra damage dealer in the game after Trunda. So Trunda, obviously, at least at the moment, invalidates Toshiro as a top damage dealer because I think the top Trunda teams versus the top Toshiro teams, I think it does, about 7 times damage. The gap is shrinking. I think Trunda is around like 70 billion. I think Toshiro is around 10 billion now on Nightmare Hydra. So the gap is shrinking. He combos very well with Lady Mikage because they're both Shadowkin. Her A1 can make him do his A1. It's very strong. I think his sort of weakness is he does need to scale up, right? He's sort of like Ninja. He needs to scale up. So he's really good against bosses, and he really wants longer boss fights. He probably, I actually didn't check because Clan Boss is kind of dead content, but he probably is the #1 damage dealer for Demon Lord as well, I'm guessing. I do think he could jump up into S plus tier if they add more bosses to the game because he's so strong against bosses. Like another clan boss could jump him up into S plus tier if we're just sitting here going, well, Toshiro is the best damage dealer for every clan boss in the game. That becomes kind of nuts. So that's something to watch out for. Toshiro, I'm going to put him in S for now. Siegfried up next. I think he was formerly like down in like B or C tier. Then he got a massive buff and he's jumping up into S tier. He's actually to the top of the list right here. Siegfried is absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. So for Arena, his passive and his second form is nuts, right? You know, it keeps him alive, block damage. He can swap form, revive the whole team with block damage on everyone for 2 turns. That's just nuts. It's just bonkers. Super, super strong. But his first form is just so OP. Like the damage that it does is crazy. So he's obviously, you know, probably the best attack damage. He is the best attack damage dealer in Arena, kind of by a good chunk. Like he makes Wukong look like an epic champion. It's insane. He's nuts. I think what puts him to the top of S plus tier here for me is that he also because he does so much damage, just insane amounts. He also just rips through the dungeons, right? So if you want to speed farm, most of the dungeons, you throw in a Siegfried and he just destroys them. Lady Mikage probably does the ones that Siegfried can't, like, you know, Phantom Shogun and yeah, I think Phantom Shogun's a big one where I think Mikage is better, just like ally attack, blow him up. But Siegfried is nuts, like rip through, Fire Knight, Ice Golem, everything. He just demolishes it. It's ridiculous. So yeah, Siegfried for me is just a crazy pull. Probably overbuffed him, to be honest, would be my thoughts. Garrel's up next. I'm gonna put Garrel in maybe S minus. I don't know. This is a tough one. She's not as good as Toshiro at Hydra, but she's very good. Really good for Hydra. Just AoE damage, pumping it out. I think her first form isn't crazy useful. Unlike Toshiro, she's probably a bit better in Arena, so she's still good for Arena, but again, not as good as the Mythicals that are higher than her. I think an S is probably fair. I'd probably put her maybe a bit above our base, actually. It's kind of a tough one to rank this one. Garl was absolutely insane, but I think there's been some newer characters that are just a bit stronger. But yeah, I still S tier for me, S minus, so I'll put her in there. Gizmak, I like to call him Gizmo. I'm gonna put Gizmak definitely in S. I think Gizmak is just nuts. Um, this is honestly a champion that maybe even could go S plus. I've been really impressed by him. He's got a really good form 1 with buffing and burns. Then his form 2, massive damage, simple, effective. His biggest problem is definitely polymorph in arena. But again, I think polymorph could be on a bit of a downward trend. So yeah, I think Gizmak, he's got a lot of potential to be very strong. I'm going to leave him here for now. I think this is the appropriate spot for him for now. But yeah, he's super good. Gizmak is really good. I think he's been pretty underrated, actually. So he's very strong. And we've got our orc, new guy, Ashnar, C tier. This guy, I tested him out on the test server. It seemed to me that his second form, that's what I tested, was only his second form. Seems to me that that is designed to be a good Hydra damage dealer with Provoke. He is not a good Hydra damage dealer. He's very middle of the road. Extremely disappointing for this Mythical. I think he needs a buff on release. It's my impressions. He just seems like he sucks. His damage seems way too bad, and his reliance on burn for arena. Like, Gizmak just stomps all over him. I guess he sort of counters Gizmak because the burns don't hurt you, but then he also enables Gizmak for form 2 if he burns your team. Gizmak's like, thanks for burning your champions. Now I'll blow them up in form 2. Bit clunky. Not a big fan of Ashnar. He's probably very good for Spider and stuff in form 1. Not too much testing being done on him yet, but I was thoroughly unimpressed. Next up, we got Crixia. Crixia is going into S tier. I put her above Mikage maybe overall. That's actually a close call. Crixia is insane for arena, right? Lockout and resetting. She can swap forms and resets. Protects you from lockout because you can't lock her out of form 2. I guess you could lock her out and block active skills so she can't transform. That's difficult to do. She brings in the resets for other areas. I mean, Lady Mikage is, there's no question, better in more areas than Crixia. She does bring in the resets, which is very good for wave clearing and dungeons and stuff. That's cool. But there are other champions that can do that just as well as her. Arguably better, like Yumiko's who can reset each other and whatnot. Yeah, I think it's fair to put her up. I'll put her up in S. I'll leave her there for now. I think it's fine. Ooh, and then we got Galathir. Galathir is going to come in. I think Siegfried is maybe a bit better overall. This is where it became a little bit difficult for me to put stuff in the tier list, right? When I was thinking about this, because I think he is S plus tier. I think Galathir is probably the best arena champion in the game. I think these 3 are the 3 best arena champions in the game right now overall. Yeah, pretty phenomenal. Now Galathir though, he doesn't get used too much elsewhere. Like he's ridiculous tanky reviver in form 1. That's mostly an arena thing. And then he's got ridiculous lockout potential in form 2. But again, that's mostly an arena thing. So he's mostly an arena champion. I don't see him being crazy for you elsewhere in the game. And that's why I'm going to put Siegfried higher, because I think Siegfried is pretty much equally crazy in arena. But Siegfried is also like, I'll just, whatever, kill dungeons in like 10 seconds, LOL. So I think that's really good. Maybe Mikage should be higher just because, again, she is so useful in so many areas. But I think these champions are sort of like more powerful in their specialist areas. Makes it, it's the challenge of doing a tier list. Commodus is up next. I am very unsure about Commodus. I've seen people really liking him. I could see him being an A. I could also see him being an S. I do think his first form is kind of nuts. He's got like crazy lockout potential. Buff strips, block active skills, steal and turn meter. It's pretty nasty stuff. It's pretty nasty. He's quite similar to a Galathir form 2. I'm going to put him here for now, but I'm not sure about this one. Then he can also swap forms and do bombs, which can, potentially one-shot an enemy team. Pretty interesting. He's a very interesting champion, I will say. I'm curious to see more of this guy. And just see where he ends up. My impressions of him right now are that he's very, very good, though. I'll put him right here. Carnage up next. Carnage. I think I'll put Carnage in the A tier. Carnage, I think he got very low ratings. I think Carnage is a bit underrated. I also think that if Polymorph does fall off a little bit, Carnage will benefit from that. He's got really good debuffs, right? He's good at block passive skills, especially in spreading that around. He does hit really hard. Yeah, I think he's just sort of generally decent, good damage dealer. So yeah, I'm curious to see what Carnage does in the future. I'm going to put him sort of in A tier right now. I don't see him jumping way up to the top, but I think probably around there is probably fair for him. He does do a lot of damage. He does do some cool stuff in Form 1, especially with the debuffs. Yeah, I think he's okay. I'm going to put him in A tier. Alaz is up next. Alaz definitely in the S tier. I might even put him there. That's a tough call. Maybe we put Toshiro higher. I don't know. Toshiro, it's tough because Toshiro is unbelievably good for Hydra. But then again, there is Trunda and Toshiro not too insane elsewhere. Alaz is very good in lots of places. I don't like his second form too much. His second form I find to be pretty underwhelming. But gosh, his first form is so insanely good. Oh my god. Block damage and counterattack on your team on a 3-turn cooldown. Then he has one of the hardest hitting defensive nukes as well. His A1, he just hits really hard. He ramps up his damage. He's a beast. I'm gonna put him above Toshiro, I think, because he brings utility on top of really high damage. I think he's more generally useful than Toshiro. Alaz is kind of crazy. I think his second form kind of sucks. I think Toshiro's second form kind of sucks as well. Whereas the other top ones here all have very good in 2 forms. Yeah, you could play Alaz and never swap to his other form and you'd be fine. Whereas I think that, Siegfried, obviously both forms, Galathir, yeah, the rest of them are just, you're swapping and both forms are insane. Yeah, okay. Androck is up next. I think Androck, probably I'm putting him around the bottom of A tier right now. Again, Androck could get better. I think his first form is really good. Right, lots of buffs and protection. Again, that's a form that could do well with further bosses in the game. If we come up against further bosses in the game that are pumping out tons of damage, you want to increase resistance and blah, 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 man, Androck's going to be your guy, and that's great. He's good for Hydra. Again, he's a great buff champ for Hydra. He's really good at that. So I'm giving him an A. I think his first form kind of carrying that A. It could maybe go up in future. His second form, I think, is pretty underwhelming. And yeah, I think his second form in Arena compared to Galathir or Commodus or Mikage or Alaz or any of them, it falls off quite a bit, honestly. So yeah, I don't think his second form is good enough. I think that does need a buff. But yeah, I'm going to leave him in A for Androck. It's appropriate. I think it's fair. Lazarius up next. Lazarius, I think, does go in the S tier here somewhere. I'm going to maybe put him right there. Lazarius is quite flexible, right? He's just a very good general support in his first form with the passive revive. Lots of buffs for your team. Yeah, you put him in protection set and he's great. Now, if you do put him in a protection set, his second form is more of a straightforward damage dealer with lockout. It's more of just an arena only form, to be honest. His first form is much more generally useful. So yeah, I think he can be great as a buffer. Just a support in Hydra. I think he can be really good as a support in Arena. I think he'd be really good as a damage dealer in Arena who happens to have a support form. That's like a better Arbiter, kind of. It's interesting. Lazarius is very interesting. I think he's not as strong as these top tier champs. I think his second form, again, is a bit more simple and straightforward. It's good. It's very good. Big damage and lockout. But I don't think it's as powerful as the Galathir or the Mikage or Siegfried, that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'm going to put him there. Yeah, which is S. Again, it's tough to differentiate between these, honestly. Things become pretty close to the top. Then speaking about things at the top, we're obviously not speaking about Frolny. Frolny is going to go into the B tier for me. I think his second form is pretty underwhelming. And his first form, he's very like Mezimel. Mezimel, she's like, okay, decent attack damage dealer. And she got the block revive. Okay, that is situationally good. Frolny, when his passive ramps up, he's quite good. Otherwise, he's a decent HP damage dealer, but nothing too crazy. I think Mezimel versus Siegfried, it's dear lord. That's the jump between a legendary and a mythical right there. It's nuts. I think sort of same thing with Frolny versus Alaz, yikes, or Frolny versus Gizmak, yeah. It's a bad comparison for him. Frolny goes into B tier for me. And then Aphidus, I'm going to put Aphidus. Aphidus is an interesting one. I think this is controversial. I think I'm going to put him in B. Aphidus, he's great for Spider. Not very useful for a mythical to be good for Spider, but he's great for it. Same sort of problem with, the Spider. Yeah, champs are good for Spider dungeon. It's the Spider's hard is really easy, though. Anyway. But what he is good for, he is a good damage dealer for Hydra. Not the best, but he's good. His second form is interesting to me. His second form actually does bring a lot of crowd control. I'm curious. And because you can't lock him out, like throw him in on like 4-piece stone skin and swap to your second. Now, he doesn't have a buff strip. That's a problem. That's a problem, right? The other good champions, like we've got buff strips from Arbase, Lazarius, we got the buff strip from Galathier as well, Crixia. That can be a polymorph threat, of course, but if they've got defensive buffs, not like block debuffs, his second form not going to do anything, or if they've got a good cleanser. But he does have a lot of crowd control in his second form, which actually could be quite nice. It could be quite nice. I still think this guy does need a buff. I think, again, if you build him for his second form, his first form kind of sucks. So, yeah, he's in a rough source. If you build him for his first form, his second form, probably not that good for Arena either. You know, he's in a rough spot. But he has some potential. I think with some buffs, he could actually become a lot better. Like with a few nice buffs, he could jump up the list a lot. He does have potential in his kit. I think some of these champs, I think the Chicken has potential in his kit as well. They just need some buffs. And then like I think some other champs like Mesamel Fralny are just always going to be decent, but not too crazy, unless they mega buff them. Again, like Ashnar, he's got good potential. He's got an interesting kit. He's got some potential, but dear Lord, is he undertuned. But there you go. That's the full list. There are my thoughts. What do you think? What do you think of my tier list? Do you agree? Do you disagree? This is how I'm putting it right now. Again, this is something I will revisit over time. I think you could easily move champions like up and down a tier, or you can absolutely easily move them around within tiers. It's quite, and like I said, it's quite hard to to judge. You know, like Galathier, so insane for Arena, but is he that good elsewhere? And then like Mikage, so good in so many areas. But, you know, apart from Hydra, she's not like absolute god tier. I mean, well, for Fire Knight, she's insanely good for Fire Knight and for Hydra, and they're two of the hardest areas in the game. Yeah, you get the gist. You get what's going on. Like I said, a couple of champs I'm not super familiar with, like Commodus, the new guy, and Ashnar. Not too familiar with them, but that is my rough list overall. Let me know what you think. And yeah, whenever 2x Primals comes around, good luck getting the top ones. If you get the bad ones, I've got some of the worst ones. We can pray for some buffs. And that's what we will do. Pray that buffs are coming soon. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.